The national consultation, co-organized by Mahila Kisan Adhikar Manch, Makam, and UN Women on the status of women farmers in farm suicide families, brought in women from suicide-prone states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and Punjab. In a single voice, they raised issues about the silence that prevailed within the governments to prevent farm suicides. Prevention was further down the lane, but extending adequate and uniform support to farm suicide-affected families for the women to continue with their lives, livelihoods, and familial responsibilities were the utmost that they demanded from this budget, which will be released within a few days. Agriculture World was present there in conversing and listening patiently to their stories. Kavita Kuruganti, member of the facilitation team of Makam, speaks to the editor, Agriculture World, at the national consultation.
Hi, my name is Kavita Kuruganti. I am one of the members of the national facilitation team of Makam, Mahila Kisan Adhikar Manch, which is a national informal platform of many organizations working to secure women farmers' identity and rights in India. We're doing a national consultation right now in New Delhi along with UN Women, which is trying to put the focus on the various issues that women farmers in farm suicide families in India contend with. In the past 24 years or so, from the time farm suicides began as a phenomenon in India, and from the time that the National Crime Records Bureau started publishing data from 1995, we've had an official acknowledgement that more than 350,000 farmers have committed suicides in India, out of which about 48,000 odd are of male farmers. That automatically means that more than 3 lakh women have been overnight left to contend with their farming all alone, their families all alone, and their own lives all alone. And in the recent past, we have done field studies in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, and Maharashtra to find out what is the situation of the women farmers in these farm suicide families. Pretty often, the debate centers around agrarian distress in general and farm suicides in general. There is no name or face to the survivors and what they are going through. This effort has been on focusing the attention of the society and the state on the women farmers who are left behind. And this is what we basically found when we went to meet these women in these states to do the micro studies. One, we found that there are many suicides which the government does not recognize as suicides and considers them ineligible for support, and therefore the women are left completely unsupported by the government. Though the crisis is from the policies created by the government, they're left to fend for themselves. We're talking about, in terms of official numbers, maybe just about 20% of the NCRB numbers of suicides having been supported by governments in one way or the other. We're talking about a whopping 80% of the cases not recognized as cases of distress, and acute distress at that. Two, we found that in many of these cases, the women who have been active farmers and cultivators are having to leave cultivation as a profession because they can't deal with their farming all alone. They can't raise new loans because they have too much of outstanding loan, and banks which have outstanding loan in the name of this family and that piece of land are not ready to give fresh loans. They have decided that they can't deal with farming, so they have become agricultural laborers. Three, we found that in many of these families, children are being pulled out of education or maybe some job opportunities in cities because the woman wants help at home. Four, we're finding that young girls especially are being pulled out of education and being married off in a hurry because the woman starts feeling that she can't deal with the young person all alone by herself. and she's in a hurry to get the girl married off, educated or uneducated. 5, we really finding that even microfinance institutions in a few cases and even private money lenders who charge exorbitant rates of interest are ready to ignore the outstanding loan and leave the woman alone. But scheduled banks and cooperative banks, the ones who are institutional lenders, they are not ready to take a humane approach when these debts continue to accrue more and more interest and build up. It's a whole lifetime of a burden that some of these women carry in terms of having to pay back those loans, and there's no hope in hell that they can actually get on with their lives with those loans remaining there. We've also found cases of complete lack of coordination, even in those cases where the government recognizes somebody as eligible. Let's say that they have recognized a woman as eligible for compensation. That same woman does not have her name entered in the pensions list, for instance. Government might have a package of support for education also, but after having received ex gratia and pension, she may not find any support actually coming to her for the fees of her children. So we find that there's a huge institutional gap in terms of coordination between different agencies and between different ministries. And there is absolutely no rehabilitation plan. The woman continues in the same agricultural paradigm which has pushed the deceased male farmer towards suicide and into suicide. She's also into chemical farming. She's also into high external input farming. She's also into borrowing money. And in many cases we found that where the woman is hoping that something would have been waived off, that the husband has borrowed, she is now receiving notices, and these women are under extreme stress. In Karnataka, we found that at the time of suicide, we counted the livestock ownership in each of these families, the land ownership in each of these families, the number of crops that they were cultivating in each of these families, and what is the situation now. And we found that there was a significant decline. Women are having to sell off little parcels of land to repay debts. Women are selling off livestock, which is an essential supplementary income source, to repay debts. These are the kinds of changes that we are seeing in these women's lives. Given this situation, there's a whole set of demands that Makam is making along with the women farmers, both to the government of India and to the state governments, especially in intense suicide affected states. These can be broadly categorized under 4 headings. One main demand is that the government has to have a humane, inclusive approach in considering what is a farm suicide and who is eligible for support. Today, if somebody doesn't own land, but the investigation team does realize from inquiries on the field that somebody has been a tenant farmer, they have leased in land, they have actually incurred more expenses than a land owning farmer in doing their cultivation, they still are not counted as eligible farm suicide. Similarly, when a woman farmer commits suicide, if the land title is not in her name. Similarly, a young unmarried farmer who commits suicide because he might be from a farming family, but the land title may be struck 3 generations ago because land regularization in terms of land records maintenance in this country is very poor. So they are not considered eligible. So there are many cases in states like Karnataka and Maharashtra, if you don't have outstanding institutional loans, you're not considered eligible. So the first demand is around eligibility, the first demand is around comprehensive data systems, and the first demand is around giving a name and an identity and a face to the survivors. In the government system, there are only records of who had committed suicide, if at all, if they're not tweaking data. But what about having a database of who are the survivors, who are the women? Unless you give identity cards to those women, they're not likely to get any entitlements. So the very first thing is about data systems and eligibility criteria and a humane, inclusive approach to all of that. The second demand is around comprehensive relief and rehabilitation package. There we want the best practices across states to be picked up. Today we have Andhra Pradesh government giving 7 lakh rupees ex gratia, whereas Maharashtra gives only 1 lakh rupees. We want at least that 7 lakh rupees bar to be reached by all state governments, supported by the center. And to that we are asking for an approach like the one that exists for pension schemes in this country. Government of India from the Rural Development Ministry gives a minimum bar of pension. On top of that, state governments add what they can depending on their fiscal spaces. Similarly, we want the central government to give a minimum dignified compensation to all such cases, on top of which state governments can add, and that minimum should be at least 7 lakh rupees. The second thing is around pension. There we are asking for at least 5 lakh rupees for the woman to continue with her life along with her family. Most of these are nuclear families and most of these are young women, and they have a lifetime of doing this hard profession, risky profession called farming to do. So they deserve at least 5 lakh rupees pension. A third thing that we are asking is for what used to be called as the Antyodaya Anna Yojana scheme of PDS ration cards, where 35 kilos eligibility is there. We would like all these families to get AAY ration cards. A fourth thing that we are asking for is for land titles to be transferred into the names of these women, because only then will they be eligible to many other benefits in the eyes of the government, whether it's agriculture credit, whether it's compensation for disasters, whether it's crop insurance, whether it's marketing procurement and stuff like that. These land titles don't always accrue to the women, and in the case of young widows, the marital family actively throws out such women with their children because they fear that she will claim a share in the property, and they don't want to give a share to the woman who has been married into the family, unfortunately. So land titles to be transferred, and we want a agricultural livelihood intervention that is in an agroecology paradigm, so that it's low cost, poison free, debt free farming for her at least, and with backward and forward linkages given to her. We need supplementary livelihood opportunities like livestock, small room. We're asking for the government to reopen all pending cases, all unsupported cases from 2010 onwards across all states. And the last demand that we have is around preventive measures. Makam is not looking forward to talking only about relief and rehabilitation after a suicide happens. We don't want more women to be pushed into this kind of a situation. We don't want more families to be pushed into this kind of a situation. We don't want India to have the shame of so many farm suicides happening in the country. The last demand is therefore around preventive measures. And preventive measures can range from helplines like Kisan Mitra, which has been running in Telangana, where farmers can seek help as distress is building up, to having debt relief commissions like the one in Kerala and Telangana, to having the ecological agriculture paradigm that ensures low-cost farming. We haven't investigated this adequately in this country, but even the exposure to neurotoxic pesticides could be inducing suicidal tendencies amongst farmers. The pockets of suicide in this country are where cotton is cultivated and agrochemical usage, especially organophosphorus pesticides, are high. And it's not as though farmers in other states and other pockets are not in distress. So maybe There is even a clinical link between suicidal tendencies and agrochemicals. So we do need an agroecological paradigm. We need greater focus on mental health care in farming communities. So all of these are part of the preventive measures that we're talking about. MSP, procurement, effective crop insurance, effective disaster compensation, no international free trade agreements which price out our farmers. Those are medium and long-term solutions, and we do want governments to make their economic policies as well as agricultural policies keeping a preventive approach in mind. We can't continue to have the shame of our annadatas committing so many suicides in this country.
So as you told कि आप लोग जो केसेस उसको रीओपन करना चाहते हैं, all the pending cases you want to reopen, but हमारी कंट्रीज़ में है कि केसेस अगर रीओपन भी हो गया तो इंक्वायरीज ईयर बाय ईयर चलता ही रहता है वो. तो क्या कुछ ऐसा नहीं हो कि फास्ट ट्रैक इंक्वायरी हो कि 3 साल में उसका रिपोर्ट आ जाना चाहिए, 2 साल में आ जाना चाहिए?
हम ये कह रहे हैं कि जो भी इंक्वायरी सिस्टम होगा, पास्ट केसेस का हो सकता है, आगे के केसेस के भी हो सकते हैं, वो टाइम बाउंड होना चाहिए. हाँ. 3 ही महीने में हमको हर केस का रिजोल्यूशन चाहिए.
Is there a data bank of farmers in each district?
नहीं, इस देश में एक फार्मर्स का रजिस्टर होना चाहिए, ये भी हम बात कह रहे हैं. और उसमें हम जैसे कर्नाटका में फ्रूट सिस्टम है, उसका उदाहरण भी ले रहे हैं. We need a comprehensive register of the last farmer recorded in this country, and which is dynamic, because a livestock farmer might be a livestock farmer today, but for 3 months they may sell their animals off, but they may get back into livestock farming soon after that. So we need a dynamic register of all farmers in this country. And as institutional mechanisms go, we want district level coordination committees to be set up, and we do want the Gram Panchayat to be the single window point for these women to find an interface with the state to resolve all their pending issues. And we are talking about block level Mahila Kisan Resource Centers, which is not just about farm suicides, but about many pending issues with regard to women farmers not getting any recognition and support as farmers.
The National Register of Farmers which you are talking about, don't you think it is difficult because the actual farmer might not be the farmer who is working on it?
So what we are talking about is a farmers register of actual farmers and not landowners, because this country has records of landowners. We have those records essentially because in the revenue department the land records do carry the name of the land title holder, and in the banking system we have the agricultural borrowers clearly registered in the Kisan credit card scheme, KCC scheme, has the land owning farmers records. We are not talking about that. We are talking about registering all farmers as per the Kisan Ayog definition of a farmer. The definition that the National Policy for Farmers in 2007 adopted in this country, and this is the official definition of farmer in this country, includes non-landowning farmers, it includes tenant farmers, it includes sharecroppers, it includes forest gathering farmers, it includes fishers, it includes livestock rearers, it includes beekeepers, it includes primary food processors. We are talking about a definition of farmer which is expansive, and all those who are in the primary occupation called farming. They are working with natural resources to produce something, and their names should be recorded, decoupled with this whole business about land ownership. And the fact that the system, the establishment recognizes only land owning farmers has been the key problem that women farmers have faced in terms of they becoming faceless farmers. Because patriarchy has vested land ownership in the hands of men mostly. And that is how women farmers, though they put in the most amount of labor, have become invisible as far as the establishment and the society are concerned.
What are the, from where are you taking this now to another platform? How do you think it will?
We are in Delhi right now because we were hoping that from this budget itself, the union government can think and include a comprehensive relief and rehabilitation package for women farmers in farm suicide families. And it's not too late is what we would like to tell Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman. The budget is about 2-3 days away. And if there's political will, they can include something, because overnight before the elections, they could produce a PM Kisan scheme that costed this country's exchequer 75,000 crore rupees. Where there is a political will, there will be something included in this budget, and we would like to see Government of India show that political will. Even if we miss the union budget, we would like the suicide affected states of Maharashtra, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Punjab and so on to include a comprehensive package in the state government budgets, which are still 1 month away. As soon as this consultation is over, we are going to host state level consultations and try and influence state governments. Most importantly, we want the women farmers who are from farm suicide affected families to not give up hope. They have given us a great deal of courage by their grittiness and by their boldness in resolutely continuing with their lives with hope and with struggle in their hearts. And if they organize themselves better, we are sure that governments will have to concede their demands with support from the rest of us. This is a call from Makam to urban citizens of India who have such huge disposable incomes in their hands compared to what these women farmers are going through, to step forward. It becomes the responsibility of urban India and other sectors also to pitch in and do their bit for these families. We are appealing to people who can step forward to support these families in distress, to adopt some of these families, support the education of the children, give livelihood support to these women, pay off some outstanding debts if you can and if you have to. But for the other sectors of this country, agriculture, and despite the crisis in agriculture, that sector has been a stepping stone. They have gone into other sectors by making agriculture as a springboard in many ways. And we owe it back to farmers of this country.
Thank you, Kavita Krishi Jagrana.